The major incident in history which highlights the drawback of the absence of democratic rights is prison in the Guantanamo Bay. About 600 people were secretly picked up by the US forces from all over the world and put in a prison in Guantanamo Bay, an area near Cuba controlled by American Navy. Families of prisoners, media, or even UN representatives were not allowed to meet them. Amnesty International, an international human rights organization, collected information on the condition of the prisoners in the Guantanamo Bay and reported that the prisoners were being tortured in ways that violated the US laws. Many prisoners had tried protesting against these conditions by going on a hunger strike. Prisoners were not released even after they were officially declared not guilty. The case of Guantanamo Bay looks like an exception, for it involves the government of one country denying rights to citizens of another country. In Saudi Arabia, a hereditary king rules the country and the people have no function in electing or altering their rule. The legislature as well as the executive are selected by the king. No freedom of religion can then be exercised by the citizens. Citizens of Saudi Arabia cannot form political parties or any political organizations. There is no freedom of religion. In Saudi Arabia, women are subjected to many public restrictions. The testimony of one man is considered equal to that of two women. The people in Kosovo were mainly ethnic Albanian, but the majority in the country were Serbs. Milosevic, a narrow-minded Serb nationalist, won the election and wanted the Serbs to dominate the country. Many Serb leaders thought that ethnic minorities like Albanians should either leave the country or accept the dominance of the Serbs. The claims of a person over other fellow beings, society, and government are called rights. The rights should be such that they can be made available to others in an equal measure. Thus, a right comes with an obligation to respect other rights. 200 years ago, anyone who said that the woman should have right to vote would have sounded strange. Today, not granting them vote in Saudi Arabia appears strange. Rights are responsible claims of persons recognized by society and sanctioned by law. Rights are necessary for the very sustenance of a democracy. In a democracy, every citizen has to have the right to vote and the right to be elected to government. Rights also perform a very special role in a democracy. Rights protect minorities from the oppression of majority. They ensure that the majority cannot do whatever it likes. In India, like most other democracies in the world, these rights are mentioned in the Constitution. Some rights, which are fundamental to our life, are given a special status. They are called fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are the basic rights of a citizen like equality, liberty, and justice. In right to equality, the government shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Equality means giving everyone an equal opportunity to achieve whatever one is capable of. Sometimes it is necessary to give special treatment to someone in order to ensure equal opportunity. Under the Indian Constitution, all citizens are entitled to freedom of speech and expression, assembly in a peaceful manner, form associations and unions, move freely throughout the country, reside in any part of the country, practice any profession or carry on any occupation, trade or business. Freedom is not unlimited license to do what one wants. Accordingly, the government can impose certain reasonable restrictions on our freedoms in the large interest of the society. Freedom of speech and expression is one of the essential features of any democracy. Our ideas and personality develop only when we are able to freely communicate with others. Citizens have the freedom to hold meetings, processions, rallies, and demonstrations on any issue. As citizens, we have the freedom to travel to any part of the country. We are free to reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. The Constitution says that no person can be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. It means that no person can be killed unless the court has ordered a death sentence. Right against exploitation. To prevent the exploitation of the weaker sections of the society, the Constitution laid down the right of exploitation. The Constitution mentions 3 specific evils and declares these illegal. 1. First, the Constitution prohibits traffic in human beings. 2. Second, our Constitution also prohibits forced labor or beggar in any form. 3. Finally, the Constitution also prohibits child labor. No one can employ a child below the age of 14 to work in any factory or mine. Right to freedom of religion. Every citizen has the right to profess, practice, and propagate the religion that he or she believes in. This right does not mean that a person has right to compel another person to convert into his religion by means of force, fraud, inducement, or allurement. A secular state is one that does not confer any privilege or favor on any particular religion. There shall be no religious instruction in the government educational institution. Cultural and educational right. Any distinct language or culture followed by citizens can be conserved. Everyone should be given equal opportunities for admission to any educational institution maintained or aided by government. All minorities have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. Here, minority does not mean only religious minority at the national level. Fundamental rights are the source of all rights. Our constitution and law offer a wide range of rights. The fundamental rights in the constitution are important because they are enforceable. We have a right to seek the enforcement of the above mentioned rights. This is called the right to constitutional remedies. When any of our rights are violated, we can seek remedy through courts. If it is a fundamental right, we can directly approach the Supreme Court or the High Court of a state. That is why Dr. Ambedkar called the right to constitutional remedies the heart and soul of our constitution. Fundamental rights are guaranteed against the actions of the legislatures, the executive, and any other authorities instituted by the government. If any act of the legislature or the executive takes away or limits any of the fundamental rights, it will be invalid by courts. Courts also enforce the fundamental rights against private individuals and bodies. The Supreme Court and High Court have the power to issue directions, orders, or writs for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Over the years, the scope of rights has expanded. Now, school education has become a right for Indian citizens. The governments are responsible for providing free and compulsory education to all children up to the age of 14 years. Parliament has enacted a law giving the right to information to the citizens. The Supreme Court has expanded the meaning of the right to life to include the right to food. The Constitution provides many more rights which may not be fundamental rights. For example, the right to property is not fundamental right, but it is a constitutional right. Right to vote in elections is an important constitutional right. The Constitution of India has provided reservation for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. But these reservations are not against the right of equality. The expansion of rights takes place in human rights. Human rights are universal moral claims that may or may not have been recognized by laws. For example, the Constitution of South Africa guarantees its citizens several kinds of new rights. The International Covenant recognizes many rights that are not directly a part of the fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution. This has not yet become an international treaty, but human rights activists all over the world see this as a standard of human rights.